My friend, have you ever found yourself playing a song where all the chords were hard to play, and then in another song, all the chords were easy? Well, you aren't alone, and anyone who's been playing for a while has run into this. I too have found myself in this situation. In fact, even though growing up I had several teachers and practiced a ton, for my first few years of playing, I never knew what I'm about to show you. But once I did know it and I applied it, it absolutely changed everything. So let me show you this one secret that made playing those hard songs super easy. All right, friends, are you ready for the secret? Here it is. Get ready, get ready. Oh, this is not it. But understanding how to properly use this to take any song in any key and convert it into chords that you know and love that are under your fingers already is an absolute game changer, okay? Now, I'm gonna show you just how to do that. Now, I grew up playing rock and blues and classical and never used a capo before. In fact, a lot of rockers would say things like, using a capo is a crutch. And if this is you, listen up, because nothing could be further from the truth. And I'm not talking about you going on Ultimate Guitar and reading, oh, okay, capo 3, I know how to use a capo. What's Eric talking about? He's gonna make a whole video and talk about using a capo, puts a capo right there. I know how to do that. I'm not talking about that. Anybody can do that, all right? Check this out. Now, I had been playing guitar for about 6 years, been playing in bands, in the studio, all the rest, when I moved to Nashville. Okay, so I've been playing for 6 years, moved to Nashville, and what I discovered was that many amazing players were using capos, and not just on the acoustic guitar. And I'm talking live and studio players alike. I'm talking about the upper echelon of players were using a capo. So any rockers or any mediocre players that were telling me that using a capo was for hacks and people that couldn't play, and these guys were amazing players in the studio playing circles around these people that were saying that capos are for hacks. Who am I gonna listen to, okay? So once I realized the reason for this and I got out of that mentality, I said to myself, Eric, why are you making the guitar so hard? Now, before you can understand this, check this out. The piano and the guitar are easiest played in the keys of C major and G major, or their relative minor keys of A minor and E minor. So, for instance, when you're playing the piano, all the white keys are the key of C major. Or if the F is sharped, then you're playing in the key of G. So one black key, all the rest are white. So a lot of people like to keep their songs in the key of C or G on the piano because it's all the white keys. It's a lot easier than to memorize the black keys as well. So, and the guitar is the same way if you keep everything in the key of C or G. So, if you're a piano player though, you're gonna need to learn all the major and minor chords and the scales in all 12 keys. And every single scale, every single chord is gonna feel different, okay? But, that's just to play the basic chords, by the way. But the guitar is different in this way. In fact, anything that you do in the open position, you can do further up the neck, right? This is how we use our capo. Now, have you ever noticed that if you're in the key of C or G, that most of the chords are easy, like C, G, D, or D minor, E minor, and A minor? Most of those are what I call the 9 essential chords, or they're in the subset of 9 essential chords, which I teach in all my courses. And in fact, I'm going to provide you a link which will get you free access to one of those courses in the description of this video. Now, these chords allow you to play thousands of songs without having to learn new chord forms, if you know this trick that I'm going to show you. But have you ever played a song in the key of G sharp, or C sharp, or B flat, and didn't use a capo? Friends, it's not fun, okay? And the reason those rockers, that I told you about earlier said that using a capo as a crutch is because most rock songs are actually written in open keys like E, A, C, and G, where you have a lot of those easy chords. And they didn't have to use the capo because the songs weren't written in those keys. But had we written those songs, or were those songs written in those sharp or flatted keys, they would be lost, and then they would be crying, and then they'd be wishing for a capo, all right? But if I told you that you could put every single song in the feel of C or G, would you like that? Would that help? Well, first off, you probably say, what do you mean by the feel of C or G, Eric? Well, let me show you. Now, have you ever followed a chord lyric sheet and it says capo 1, and then you followed the chords G, C, and D, for example? Well, if you told the other melodic instruments in your band, right, the other players in your band, to play G, C, and D over that, it would sound absolutely terrible because everything would be a half step off, okay? So even though it feels like a G, and it feels like a C, and it feels like a D, you telling the other instruments, hey, this is a G, C, and D is gonna sound terrible, everything's gonna be a half step off, but it still feels that way to you, right? So in that case, we're not actually playing in the key of G, we would actually be playing in the key of G sharp. But as guitar players, we don't think like that, right? We just capo 1 and we say G, C, and D. So if you've ever done this before, then you're halfway there. But the other half of this equation, and what is the main part of this lesson, and now that you have a grasp of what we just did, right? This is going to show you how it's going to make things a lot easier for you. But we have to do it in reverse, which is where most players get scared and bail out. All right, so don't do this, because literally don't bail out, because right now you're going to be getting some information that's going to absolutely change the way you think about the guitar. Okay, most players think that you need some sort of calculus to do this, but in fact, it's easy if you know how. And in fact, the capo key chart that you'll be seeing here in this video, and plus an article on the subject that will further clarify this for you, will be provided to you for free with a link that you'll find in the description of this video. Okay, I really want you guys to get this. So, that said, you eventually won't need that chart that I'm giving you, but you can use it to check your work and that sort of thing, okay? All right, so now I have 2 song examples for you. I literally could pull out 1,000 song examples, but I'm just gonna pick 2 for you right now. Maybe I'll even pick out a song that doesn't exist, and we'll just give you an example here, okay? So let's, I'm gonna do these so you can see what I mean here in real time, okay, in real world. Now, even though G and C are our easiest keys, they may not necessarily be the keys that you convert these to. We could convert everything to the key of C or G, but in some cases you may convert them to A or E or D, okay? So the first example here is a song called Feelin' All Right. It was made famous by Joe Cocker. Lots of folks did it, but the song consists of a C7 and an F7. So here's a C7 and here's an F7. C7, F7, okay? And so for some of you, you're like, okay, well, I can play those are super easy. And some of you are like, well, I can't play bar chords, and I definitely can't play an F7 bar chord. And in that case, you might say, wow, Eric told me that trick to stop making the guitar so hard, and I could make things a lot easier by just using the capo. So the song is in C. And so this is a great way to start thinking about how to use your capo. You can use music theory, or you can just use some patterns, which is music theory, by the way. But in this case here, first chord is a C. So if I take my capo and I put it down on the bass note of that C, since that's my tonic, then this is a great starter. So now, instead of playing that C7 form, my bass note is what I would think of as a guitar player as an A, right? There's an A chord, it's an A string, E string, A string here, right? So here's my A chord. So instead of an A, I'm gonna play an A7, but realistically, I'm not playing an A7 because I'm capoed up at the 3rd fret. You know, I'm basically going up 3 half steps, okay? So I could think about it like this is my C chord, right? And now that I'm capoing 1, 2, 3, now I could think about it going 3 half steps down to A, and that's gonna be my same form, okay? Right there. Now the other chord was an F7, and here's an F, Here's an F. So really, if I was capoing that, that would be a D, or as I would think about it as a D, as a guitar player. So an A and a D. So I would say a D7 then. So now an A7. As opposed to okay, so that just gives you a little example there. You can use music theory to do this, or again, you can use the patterns. Let's take another example. And using the capo key chart there, you're gonna see, you know, the 1, the 4, the 5, and the minor 6. Those chords are the chords that appear most in pop and rock and country and blues tunes. So get used to those chords. Those are the ones we really want to try to keep in those open keys more than the others. All right, so let me show you another example here. So this is Achy, Breaky Heart. It's not my favorite song in the world either. So we're in this together. But it's a great example. So the way a lot of people play this is they'll think a G and a D, a G and a D, but the song is capoed at the 2nd fret. So realistically, what's happening is we're playing an A chord and an E chord, okay? So there's a few different ways that we could do this. We could take that A, and if we find it on the low E string, then we take that A, and now that becomes our, what was our G chord, and then a D, okay, instead of the open E. So another example here, what I'm going to give you here is that if you ever run into, say, something with a chord that looks like this, and another way you can think about it is if you see a flat chord or a sharped chord, you know, if you see an F sharp, or if you see a B flat, or you see an A sharp, or a G flat, or a D sharp, or a D flat, what that's indicating to you, especially if it's the root or the key of the song, then that's probably a place where you're gonna want to apply the capo to make it to where you have all of these open chords. Okay, so for instance, the song's in the key of C sharp, in that case we'd have a C sharp, a G sharp, and an F sharp. So there's 3 sharp chords. So if we wanted to make this easier, we would capo the 1st fret so that we have that nice C there, that G, and here we do have a bar chord. Sometimes you're gonna run into that, but you wanna try to keep most of the chords, if you can, in the open position. Now with that being said, if I wanna keep them all open, I could technically take my C sharp and find it on the low E string, right there, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna act like that's my G chord. Well, in order for me to play the G chord right here, the nut would have to be right here, okay? So meaning the capo would have to be right here. How did I figure that out? Think about it. If you want to play a G chord and you have one space and then the nut, then if I'm playing all the way up here, then there needs to be a space and then the nut, or in this case, the capo. So I'm gonna put the capo right there, and now that song that was in C sharp is still in C sharp, but now I can use all open chords instead of 3 bar chords that were miserable to play. So now I'm playing a G, a C, and a D, what feels like the key of G, which feels like a G, feels like a C, feels like a D, but in reality it's not. In reality, it's a C sharp, a F sharp, and a G sharp. How about that, right? Makes things easier. So literally, my friends, you can do this with any song. Now you may end up having to capo a little bit further, but the way you want to think about it is this. And here's the only thing you have to do is you need to find what the key of the song is and either place it on the 6th string or the 5th string, depending on what feel you want to play in. So if you want to play in the feel of C, then you'll want to make sure that your key, that you're finding the bass note on the A string. If you want it to feel like it's in the key of G, then you just find the key on the low E string. So for instance, I'm just going to pull one out of the air. If I said A flat, if I wanted to play in the key of A flat, then I just need to find A flat on the low E string. So I'm going to say E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, or A flat, it's the same thing, and then I'm going to grab the chord, right? Well, we know that there needs to be a space here in between the nut and our chord. So if I'm here, here's my space, that's where I'm going to put the capo. It's that easy. Don't overthink this. It's that easy. Okay? Same thing if the song was in the key of G sharp and I wanted to play it in the C position, then I'm going to find a G sharp on the A string. Okay? And the G sharp's going to be way up high because would be a half step below the A. So I'm going to go all the way up here, and that is my G sharp. So literally, if I held the chord like that, normally our nut would be right here, right? It's right behind the first finger. So I find the G sharp, which is right there, and then my capo would go right there. And that's the only thing I need to think about. And using your key chart there that I've given you, your 1, 4, 5 would be a C, an F, and a G. Now friends, don't overthink this. Watch this latter part of this video a few times more. Try this with a few songs, because even though you may get the concept right now, okay, if you don't practice it, it's not going to become part of you. Just getting it is half of the battle. You have to practice this or it's not going to work for you. All right, my friends, did you enjoy this video? If you did, you know what to do. Thumbs up, subscribe, all that jazz. I'm here to help you, so please let me know how I can help you. I've got a free course for you. We've literally had hundreds of thousands of people go through this course, and they've learned an immense amount of stuff. And it's there available for you for free. Link is below. Let me know how I can help you. Leave those comments. Let me know what it is that you like about this video, what you didn't like about this video, because I'm here for you. As always, be kind to all beings. Do the right thing always. Practice your guitar. I'll see you in the next video.